This year for Milk and Consoles, I wanted to throw my hat into the ring with some 2019 Nintendo predictions. I have no idea if any of these will end up being true or accurate, and some of them are pretty out there, but after 2019 is over, we'll be able to come back and see how much I predicted that actually came to pass. So, with that said, starting in January 2019, I think that Nintendo's going to have a Nintendo Direct. It's going to feature games for the first half of 2019, updates for their games, that sort of thing. I think it's going to hit early January. Not so early that it's the first week of January, but maybe the second week of January. At the latest, it'll be the first week of February, I think. But in that, we're probably going to see Yoshi's Crafted World as well as a release date. Some indie titles like Untitled Goose Game, and I think also we're going to see Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. We're going to get some more details on that as well as a release date for that. Moving into February, I think that's when Untitled Goose Game is going to come out, I think, is in February. There's not going to be much beyond that in February, I don't think. It's going to be a little bit of a dry month. But moving on from there, in March, I think we will start to finally see Pokemon Game Freak start up Nintendo Directs for the new Pokemon main series games. They're going to start with a Direct to announce the games, give us a first taste, and then they're going to be giving out constant updates pretty much every month until the game releases. I think the Pokemon games are going to go back to a gym system, but with a new region, and just throwing it out there, it's a guess, completely not educated at all. It's just, I think that the games are going to focus on diverse climates as a theme. So moving on to April, I think that's when we're going to see Nintendo's big late winter, early spring game, and that's going to be Yoshi's Crafted World coming out in April. Now, Amazon just listed this game as coming out April 26th, 2019 on their website. That's still a rumored date, but sounds about right to me. I was actually predicting this before that news came out, but because this video is coming out later, it's going to look like I said it after the fact. But no, I definitely think Yoshi's Crafted World is coming in April. In May, I think Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is going to come out for Switch. The Avengers Endgame movie comes out in April. It could tie in with Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 in April, but I think it's more likely that the game is going to come out in May, just after the movie. Not by a ton, but just by a little bit. Moving on from that, in June, this is where E3 comes in, and this is where some of my crazier predictions come in. So with that, I think we're going to have a Switch redesign. I think Nintendo's going to open up their E3 Direct presentation with a Switch redesign. This was rumored in the Wall Street Journal a few months ago for coming next year, that is 2019. I think it's true. I think it's going to happen. I think that they're going to have two new versions of the system put out on the shelves, one with a dock and one without, and that's because I think they're going to focus on the Switch having a design that is more portable, built more for being portable and tabletop primarily. Their logic behind that is there's going to be a 25% bigger screen, and it's going to be 1080p. So it's still going to fit in the dock, but it's going to have a bigger screen so that on the go it doesn't feel as, small compared to your TV, and that's where they're going to market it as more portable. I think, again, it's going to still fit in the dock. They're going to sell it without a dock and with a dock. I think the with a dock version is going to come for $299. That's the current price of the original Switch right now, so obviously that means that this is going to be essentially replacing the original Switch in terms of price point. I think they're going to sell it without the dock, though, for $249 for a small savings there for people that maybe already have a dock and want a second Switch that is more geared towards portable aspect nature, that sort of thing. I don't think there's going to be any other updated specs in terms of the raw specs. Maybe there'll be a better Tegra chip inside, but that'll only be for the power savings and for powering the bigger screen and the higher resolution, 1080p instead of 720p. The Tegra chip improvement it's not going to really be for better games. I also think they're going to keep selling the original Switch for $199, which is a $100 price cut with the dock. That's going to, set Nintendo up to have multiple price points for entry on Switch. They really liked doing that with the Nintendo 3DS, which sold gangbusters, and part of that is because they had multiple price points for people to go in. If they didn't have a ton of money, if they were kids, they could buy the 2DS. If they had some more money and were willing to spend a little more, they got a nicer version. But ultimately, all the systems played mostly, until the new Nintendo 3DS, mostly played all the same games. I think that Nintendo's going to do that again with Switch here, and the multiple price points thing is really appealing to them, and I think it's going to help them sell the Switch even more than they already did. From there, I think Nintendo's going to announce that Super Nintendo and not N64, but I think they're going to go with the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. I think they're going to come to the Nintendo Switch online service. Super Nintendo games probably will be immediately available, but I think the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games will probably come a little bit later in the year, maybe during the holiday season. I think that it makes sense to have the Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games along with the Super Nintendo games on there rather than the N64. It just makes more sense to me from a business point, because I think Nintendo's going to want to sell the N64, the GameCube, the Wii games as their own standalone titles, not necessarily under the Virtual Console banner either. I think you can probably expect 3 NES games a month, 1 to 3 Super Nintendo games a month, and 1 to 3 Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy games a month. And with that, I think a big surprise here is going to be, alongside the Game Boy Advance titles being announced for Nintendo Switch Online, I think Nintendo's going to say that Mother 3 is coming to the West. It's going to be one of the first Game Boy Advance releases, and I'm going to go crazy for it, because I've been wanting Mother 3 to come to the West for a long time. I think they're going to basically throw it into the Nintendo Switch Online and say it's finally here. And so that'll be a fun announcement, I think. My next prediction for E3, I think, is going to be Skyward Sword HD. I think that's going to be revealed as official, and I think it's probably going to drop sometime in early October. Just kind of makes sense. Nintendo wants to always put out a Zelda game each year, whether it be a main series game, which obviously doesn't come every year, or if it's more of a spin-off or a remake or a re-release. Skyward Sword HD was kind of already almost officially discussed by Nintendo in a concert in China, and I think it's definitely coming. So I think it makes sense to drop it in 2019 as a standalone Legend of Zelda game in early October. And after that, I think they're going to probably lead off with some Metroid Prime 4 news, which is going to be huge. Everyone's going to want that. They're going to be foaming at the mouth for it. They're definitely going to show it off, at least a little bit. Probably some limited gameplay, and they might give a release year. Or maybe a season, but they're not going to give a date per se. But they're going to say it's coming 2020. Likely holiday 2020. I don't think it's coming in 2019. A lot of people think it's coming in 2019. I don't think so. I think it's definitely still needs some time for development, especially because we haven't seen anything from it yet. But we're definitely going to get a taste of what actual gameplay is like at E3. Alongside that, to lessen the blow of the fact that it doesn't come out this year, I think that Nintendo's definitely going to have that Prime Trilogy re-release for the Switch. Now, I'm hoping it's a remaster with updated textures and graphics. I really hope it's not a port, but I could see it being a simple port. But I'm going to say it's a remaster, and it's going to be released immediately after the Direct to kind of lessen that 2020 blow for Metroid Prime 4. And then speaking of Metroid Prime, Retro, I think we're finally going to hear what they've been working on. Rumor has it they've been working on Star Fox Grand Prix, and I think that's a real thing. I think that wasn't like somebody made it up. It's a rumor. I think they're really working on it. I think it's still coming. I think it's gonna drop. I think they're gonna announce it, and it's gonna drop late summer, maybe August. And I think that they're gonna have Captain Falcon make a cameo appearance. I'm gonna call it now. It just makes sense. And I think it's going to be a lot like Diddy Kong Racing. Next, I think I think Nintendo's going to reveal a port of Mario Maker, which, again, it just makes sense. Mario Maker was just one of the best games on Wii U, most successful. They'd be stupid to not bring it forward as a port to the Switch. They already ported it once to the 3DS, which means it's definitely that they have the assets that can easily be ported from one place to another. I think we're going to see a port of Mario Maker, and I think it's going to drop in 2019. Holiday 2019 specifically. Finally, to start wrapping things up for E3, I think Persona 5 is definitely going to be coming to the Switch this fall being 2019 fall. We'll get Joker released at E3, and they'll say alongside of it, yes, Persona 5 is coming to Switch. It's coming this fall. You'll be able to pick it up sometime in probably September, I'm going to guess. And alongside of that, they'll announce another Smash DLC fighter. I think the Smash DLC fighter that's going to be next revealed is Geno from Super Mario RPG. I think that Nintendo and Square Enix have been getting along really nicely lately. They've been bringing over the Final Fantasy games. The Octopath Traveler has done really well. I think Nintendo and Square Enix are partnering up. They're getting buddy-buddy, and they're finally going to reveal Super Mario RPG 2, developed by Square Enix and published by Nintendo. And that's going to tie in with a Geno DLC release in Smash Brothers. I think that's going to be like the final thing, like one more thing announcement of their E3 presentation 2019. I definitely think it's going to be a nice surprise. And if I'm wrong, that's definitely one of my more wacky ones, but I'm hoping for it. And I also think it's a definite possibility because of how well Square Enix has been supporting the Switch and how much they say they're going to be supporting the Switch. So look forward to that. I also think they're probably going to announce another DLC character, maybe at E3. And if they do, I think it's going to be Banjo-Kazooie. And I think he's maybe going to be coming in 2020. So look for that. I think it'd be, a nice little fun tie-in with Microsoft. It won't be before the Geno / Super Mario RPG 2 being announced, but I think it'll be in the E3 Direct somewhere. Maybe at the very beginning before the Switch redesign. Who knows? So that's the big blowout in June. Following that, we got the game releases. They're coming. So I think we're going to see Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's going to come out in July. And with that, we're going to see obviously more of that in the E3 presentation. It's going to be ready to go, I think. They might show some of that in the January Direct that I mentioned earlier, but it's definitely coming 2019. So I think July makes a lot of sense for Fire Emblem. It sells really well. They need a summer title. It just makes sense to put something there, and that's something I think is Fire Emblem Three Houses. Mother 3, again, I think that's dropping potentially either after / in E3 or maybe a little bit later in July as a standalone title, as almost like a standalone release, even though it's through the Nintendo Switch Online. Moving on to August, that's when I think we're going to see Game Freak's new working title, the game Town. That's their new IP there. I think that's just, a nice game to throw again in the summer where games are kind of like, it's dried up a lot of times in the games market. It's right before the holiday season, so they kind of need to put out some games that maybe are a little bit shakier, need to be standing on their own more, and I think Town makes sense to put there, along with Star Fox Grand Prix. Unfortunately, Star Fox isn't the best title when it comes to sales. Nintendo has been trying to revitalize the series, but it hasn't been doing the best, so it needs to kind of have its own place to stand out, and the holiday season isn't it, so I think they're going to put it in the summer. And like I said, I think it's going to have a single player adventure mode like Diddy Kong Racing. And then from there, we're moving into September. With September, we're going to see Persona 5, I think, and of course, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing was announced in 2019, and for the record, I obviously think that's going to be part of the E3 Direct as well. They're going to detail Animal Crossing, but in terms of when it releases, I think it's releasing 2019 in September. Animal Crossing's always felt like a game that it starts in the fall for me. That's like canonically when you should start an Animal Crossing game in my life. I feel like the first Animal Crossing game I remember playing around school time a lot in September and into the winter months. I always enjoy playing Animal Crossing around that time of year, and so that's why I think it's going to be there. It's going to be a major title for them, so I think it's probably going to be late September, but so it's closer to the holiday season, but it's definitely, I think, going to be in September. In October, it just makes sense to launch Luigi's Mansion 3 near Halloween. It's the perfect time to do it. Again, we'll see some at E3, we'll get a date, it'll be for October. Luigi's Mansion 3 is going to hit near Halloween. I'm calling it now. Just makes sense. In November, now we're officially in like the full swing of the holiday season. We're going to see that Pokemon main series game releasing. I'm going to say the Friday before Black Friday is when it's going to actually be released. I'm calling it down to the day. So that's where we're going to see the Pokemon main series game, and I also think we're going to see Mario Maker in that month, maybe like the week after Black Friday. Actually, that's probably in December, but I think it's going to happen. Mario Maker is going to happen either very early December or maybe mid November for Mario Maker, because it's got to be a holiday title. Mario and Zelda being near the holiday season, like I said, and Mario just makes sense. Put them near the holidays. And wrapping it all up, December, I think Bayonetta 3 is going to come out just before the holidays, but just after November though. So I think that's when they're gonna land Bayonetta 3. It's been in development for a while. I don't know if we're gonna see it in 2019. It could be pushed off to 2020. But I realize, Nintendo needs a title there, and I put everything else before December. So I think it's gonna be Bayonetta 3 that's really gonna round out 2019. So that's it. That's my predictions for 2019 for Nintendo. I'd like to know what you guys think. If you guys think I'm wrong, or if you guys have different thoughts, feel free to leave a comment down below. I don't normally do pre-recorded videos. I actually normally just stream. So if you want to catch a stream of mine, I usually stream every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can subscribe if you haven't subscribed. That really helps me out a lot. And if you like the video, like it. But again, please make sure to leave a comment on this one, letting me know what you think is going to happen in 2019. And I'll see you then. Have a happy new year, and I hope you had a happy holiday. Bye!